Welcome, my friend and fellow business owner. Welcome, I'm your host, Ingrid Thompson, founder of Healthy Numbers. Thank you so much for being here and listening in for another rich and informative business conversation. Today, I'm speaking with Julie Goodall. Here is what I have come to know about you, my valued listener. You're interested in business and you want to increase your understanding of how business works, especially when it comes to the financial success. You want to be able to have confident conversations when it comes to talking about money. You want to know how to make your decisions, your business decisions, based on data and on facts, so that ultimately you can build financial autonomy through being successful in business, whatever success means to you. And for everyone, it is just a little bit different. I'm here to help you, and this podcast has been made just for you. This is a wonderful conversation as Julie tells us, listen into this snippet, what she wishes she had done differently.
I wish that in the beginning, I didn't take every single person who said that they would give me money and work with me. Because there were years of working with the wrong people, and it wasn't terrible. They're not bad people. It wasn't a good fit for me. I wasn't necessarily happy, and it wasn't a good fit. And I didn't make the money that I could have made, because I was, like I said, I kind of had that scarcity mindset, and I just took anything that walked in the door, and that didn't leave me open to take the right people.
Maybe this has happened to you as well. You've been saying yes to everyone. This conversation was recorded earlier this year, and listening back, I know you are truly going to enjoy what Julie shares about running a successful business for the past 6 years. Listen out for what she says about how she got started and the story about needing a right arm. Julie has a truly positive and creative approach to being in business. She was doing okay, and then she hired a coach, and that was life-changing, as she says, resulting in her business doubling. One of the really beneficial things about her coach was getting really clear about who are the best clients for her to work with. As she said in her comment, at first she worked with everyone. We do hear this pattern in a number of our conversations, don't we? People start off working with everyone and then figure out who is the best fit. I truly believe you'll learn a lot from listening in to my discussion with Julie. She's practical, and as a guest, she clearly was prepared to talk about her experience, and we get to have a terrific conversation. As always, there's no advertising on this podcast apart from me and my book and my guests. You can find Julie at genesisconsultingcorp.com. The episode is brought to you by my book, So You Want to Start a Business. If you'd like a complimentary copy, head to healthynumbers.com.au, and you only have to pay for postage. For the Kindle, head over to Amazon. There's a link in the show notes. Enough from me. Let's listen to Julie and what she has to share about running and building her own business. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, and here we are today with Julie Goodall. Hello, Julie. Oh, sorry, I think I called you Judy. Hello, and here we are today with Julie Goodall. How are you, Julie? Welcome.
I am great, Ingrid. Thank you.
That's good to hear. Now, Julie, where are you in the world right now?
I am in a little town called South Burlington, Vermont, which is up in the northeast corner of the United States, up by Canada.
And is it very cold right now?
It's not terrible today, although cold is a relative term around here. It's about 35 degrees.
Oh, that's so funny. I was listening to somebody saying that they were on holidays somewhere that was -10, but where they live is usually around 5 degrees. And so you're right. Cold is relative, isn't it?
Yep, it certainly is.
Alrighty. So I think by the time this podcast goes live, it'll actually be much warmer. It'll be another month or two, a couple of months before this one goes live. Okay. So enough chit chat. What is the business that you're in, Julie? Tell us about your business.
My business is Genesis Consulting, and ironically enough, I am in the business of helping other people start businesses. I am a small business consultant.
A small business consultant. Well, we can't have enough of us around the world, can we, Julie? Because I think pretty much everybody in the world wants to start their own business. So tell us, when did you start this business?
I started in November of 2014.
So you've been doing this for quite some time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us why.
I think like any entrepreneur, I saw a need. I saw other entrepreneurs, other business owners struggling to either run or manage or start businesses. And I had started a couple before this. This is my third business. And so I took a run at it.
Yeah, indeed. And so that's what so you could see a need for the others. So what did you need from this business, given that you'd already had two businesses before? Did you close those up, or were you still running them as well? And then, so how did this one come about? Why did you start this one?
Yeah. So I did close the other two. They weren't the right fit for me. I have an entrepreneurial spirit. So starting a business is just sort of a natural thing for me. But I was actually wrapping up my second business, and we were having some legal work done. And my business partner introduced me to our lawyer, and he said, "Mark, this is Julie. She's my right arm." And without missing the beat, this lawyer, he said, "Well, where can I get a right arm? I need a right arm." And so we met later on, and he said, you could really turn this into a business. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, this right arm thing. Like, as an entrepreneur, we all need that extra set of hands to run the back office and kind of do all those things that really bog us down and keep us from doing what we love. And so I was like, oh, you think? And it just sort of turned into a thing from there. It was very part-time at first. It served my needs and allowed me to stay home while I was pregnant, and then for 9 months with my daughter. And it was just sort of a part-time gig, and it was something that I enjoyed, that I could do remotely, and kind of checked all my boxes,
Yeah, it certainly does. So was there a moment, I just love that right arm, because we do, we just wish we could have another right arm, but perhaps a left arm if you're a lefty. So
exactly.
Where could I get a left arm? So Julie, was there a moment when this business felt real? That you start working on it. Have you got that kind of pinch me, this is real moment?
Absolutely. Yes. And it's funny, I remember when it was in January. It was when my daughter was 9 months old. And like I said, I was doing this so that I could stay home with her. Mm-hmm. And I had this opportunity for a really big client that was really going to kind of set me over the edge of where I could be a stay-at-home mom and do the work. And so I actually sat down with my husband one night, and I was like, so this could really be a real thing. Like, this could support us, all of us, if you want to stay home for a year. And he was excited about it, quit his job as a civil engineer, and became a stay-at-home dad for the next 12 months. And my business was able to support our family of four. And that's when it was like, I still, throughout that year, still had moments of like, we are a one income family, and my little business is allowing us to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. And that's when I knew it was a viable thing. It was going to stick. This one's going to stick.
Oh, Julie, the hairs on my arm are actually standing up with that. That is just the most gorgeous moment, isn't it? I can see why you'd remember that. But what a big decision to make.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So did you, in order to be able to make a decision like that, did you do some number crunching, some viability testing? Talk about that process, please.
Yeah. I mean, so I had been running it at this point for, about 3 years and doing the part-time thing. And so I kind of knew what worked. And, being a consultant, as you know, very low overhead, you can kind of do it from anywhere. So you don't have a lot of, equipment or rent or anything like that. So, and I've been in accounting for over 20 years. So number crunching is sort of my thing. And so, yeah, I worked out, we obviously had a family budget. And so I knew, what that monthly nut was, like, what do we need to make each month to, keep our lifestyle the way it is. And then adding that buffer, because I'm also a little bit conservative and I like to, under promise, over deliver. And so, yeah, I had worked the numbers, but it was still, even with the numbers, it's still all a guesstimate. So it was still a big leap. And I was just so pleased every month that, I was able to do that. And, but yeah, it's a lot that goes into it. It's scary no matter how much you prepare.
And you can only prepare so much. You have to actually start doing stuff, don't you? So
exactly.
So people were coming to you and saying, we want what you're doing, and you got this big client opportunity, which kind of took you to that next level. What were the signals that you were getting that there was a need for this? What was this right arm that people needed? What sort of messages did you get from the marketplace? What were you listening to?
Yeah. So everyone that I talked to, everyone that, whether they were interviewing me to take me on, or they were just sort of venting, the commonality with all of them is complete and utter overwhelm. This feeling of, I got into business to do this thing that I love, so I'd never have to work another day in my life. And I'm just so overwhelmed, and I'm so bogged down with all of the other stuff. I call it the back office noise that goes along with running a business. But the message, it was over and over and over. It didn't matter the industry. It was widespread. It was every single entrepreneur. And oddly enough, that's what I really enjoy. I enjoy the back office noise. I enjoy the numbers. I enjoy organization and making sense of the chaos. And I always thought that everybody did. That was the funny thing. I didn't realize that I was somewhat unique in that. Because other people were they were so relieved. And so I would do the work for them. And it wasn't even so much the money that was the reward. It was the people that would just take this big sigh, and they're just like, oh my God, I feel like the world has been lifted off my shoulders. And I was like, I love that. And I want to keep giving that.
And I'm sure everybody listening is just ready to find out how they can get in touch with you at this moment. Why don't you just give us, I'll put all the notes in the show notes, but right now, what's the best way for people to find you? Because they want that weight taken off their shoulders.
Yeah, they can go to my website, or they can email me. So my website is genesisconsultingcorp.com, and the email is julie@genesisconsultingcorp.com.
Okay, so if you're listening and you need a right arm or a left arm, and you're needing that weight lifted off your shoulders, I think Julie's right there to help you. Okay,
Absolutely.
so apart from, I was just going to ask you, how do you find new customers? So things like coming on a podcast like this is one way of finding customers. But how do you, in the early days, how did you go out and get customers back in November 2014? Because, we're talking 5-6 years ago now. Where did those new customers come from? What sort of campaigns have you run? Where did they come? Where are they? How do you find them?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate to be surrounded by really good people. And so I know that sounds, kind of just, it's a quaint little thing, but I've been the guy that said I was his right arm. He would introduce me to people. He was so excited about the work that I was doing that he obviously knew a lot of other people who needed a right arm. And so for a long time, as I grew, it was just sort of an organic, slow growth as he introduced me to people. I've also always been a big networker. I love people, and I think that comes across when I meet people. So networking events, a lot of local networking events. And I'm a native Vermonter. So Vermont is a very, very small state. And so if you do right by people and you're good at what you do, I think the word just sort of spreads. But as of late, more networking groups for sure. I'm not sure if you have BNI where you are, but I do a BNI.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very active in my BNI group, which is a new thing this year. And it's just been invaluable. Like, learning to really nail your sort of 60-second pitch, being able to tell people what you do in 1 minute or less.
Yeah.
And just having that level of support and people that are proud of what you do and like what you do and are eager to share it for you.
Yeah.
I've never had to pay for marketing.
So, I think you've just raised a couple of really interesting points there. So one of them, the lawyer who said, that you were like a right arm, that, that referral, partnering with someone, not actually having a business partner as such, but actually having people who you partner with in the community who then sing your praises for you. Really, we know over and over referrals, those kinds of partnerships, not like a business partnership, but that sort of partnership where, people refer to each other is the most powerful way to build. And as you say, if you do right by people, people respect you and trust you. And, today more than ever, people just want people to do what they say. They just, if you're going to do this, you say you're going to do it, all you have to do is do it. You don't really have to knock it out of the park. It's because no one's doing what they say they're going to do. So, and I love what you say there about BNI. Now, people have, I know a lot of people have been in BNI and have found it enormously successful. We've had guests on the show previously who've talked about their networking groups. And so I would say to people, find the one that works for you. If it's
Absolutely.
BNI, if it's BX, if it's, whatever your local business chamber, there's multiple choices. Go and find
Yes.
the one that works for you. Mm.
Yeah. Because if you try to do one that's not a good fit for you, it's not going to be successful. Not everything is right for everybody. There's a lot of really great groups out there. I just happened to find one that was a perfect fit for me.
Yeah, and it might take a couple of goes before you find the right one. And
Absolutely.
yeah. And I think one of the secrets to networking, and you might, because you're a really good networker, is to really know what you want out of it.
Yes.
So why are you going to the networking group? What is it going to give you? If you're going to drag yourself there, a lot of them here in Sydney early in the morning. And you hear people saying, oh, I have to drag. Well, how is that ever going to work for you if that's the approach?
Right.
Yeah.
Hey,
When's
mindset
yours?
is everything.
Yeah. Is yours
Mine
in the
is,
morning?
It is. It's at 8:30. But
wow.
With kids, I've already been up for 2 hours by then. So it's
a lot of ours are
for
much
me.
earlier. A lot of ours are sort of 6:30 and they're finishing up by 8 or 8:30. Yeah.
Oh, no, I wouldn't do that. I would not be successful in that. No.
Well, and maybe that's just a Vermont thing, but anyway, let's go back to our questions. Exit strategy. Have you thought about, succession, exit, where does this go in 5 years' time? What's your vision for where this is headed?
Yeah, well, I think I'm one of the lucky ones. I love what I do. I can see doing it for a very long time. So I guess, I don't have a formal exit strategy. My hope is that somewhere over the next 10 to 20 years, I have a fabulous employee who is as passionate about the work as I am, that I can just sort of hand it off to and it'll be in good hands. I don't ever think it's going to be this huge, legendary thing. I just want it to keep going and keep doing good. And if there's no right person to do that, then I guess my succession plan would be to make sure that my customers are in good hands before I am done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's other people out there who are very good at what they do.
Yeah. And the truth is that, there's so many people needing what you do. There's room for everybody in the market, isn't there?
Absolutely.
So speaking of the market, how did you get a pricing strategy? Because, you've been doing this a long time. You started with it sort of part-time. You built it up. You picked up a big client. You get referrals. Because this is one of the biggest challenges for people who do the sort of service-based work you do. Help us understand, how do you think about pricing? Not necessarily how much you charge, but what's the thinking underpinning it?
Yeah. So, my thinking now is very different than when I started. When I started, it was like, check a couple people, be somewhere in that range, maybe on the low end because I'm just starting out, and just, kind of work my way up and make a name for myself. And that's sort of what I started doing. One of the most valuable things I've learned, and I just learned it in this last year, is to know your worth and value what you do, or nobody else will. And people have this, you get what you pay for mindset. So if you are too economical, let's say, I don't want to say cheap, but if you are on the lower end of the spectrum, people are going to assume that your product or service is subpar. So I feel like there's a sweet spot. If you are the highest on the pricing scale, you better be the best of the best of the best. And you can only, you sort of limit your clientele a little bit too. So for me, personally, a big part of it is I'm helping entrepreneurs. I'm helping people who are just starting out. So I don't want to be on the top of the scale because I already know these people are struggling, to get it off the ground, to get it running. And yet I don't want to be, on the bottom of the spectrum either. I don't know if this is actually answering your question, but this was sort of my thought process. But I ended up sort of, I would say, in the middle range, maybe to the higher end. But like I said, just this last year, I really learned to value what I do. And my coach had taught me that. And she was right. Other people will value what you do if you value it. But if you diminish the work that you're doing, you can't really expect your clients to appreciate it.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? Is that and it's when you feel comfortable asking for the amount of money, it makes it, So you've mentioned a coach. Talk to us about the role coach, mentor, who has been in these roles. You don't need to, you can mention names if you want, but it's really more around what role did they play in helping you build your business. And you've just given us a beautiful example of how your coach has helped you with mindset and with your thinking about your value and your worth. Talk a little bit more about how important it is to have a coach?
Oh, I think it's invaluable. I think that even coaches need coaches, because you can't see the forest through the trees. And I never understood that. I never understood that more than I do now. And so when I was just starting out, I couldn't afford, a legitimate coach that, was charging their worth. And so I leaned on people who were older and wiser than me and were willing to sort of teach me the ways of the business. And they were fantastic. The lawyer that I mentioned earlier being one, he was my biggest advocate, my biggest cheerleader. I can't say enough about him. And then I went through a phase where I had a friend of mine who is from Boston. So, bigger city, bigger thinker than I was at the time, who really bolstered me for a very long time. And then it was this last year that I hired a coach. And that was honestly life-changing. I can't say enough about having a coach.
How is a coach different to leaning on friends, to having that lawyer? Because those are people who knew you. Could you, because this is a beautiful example, Julie, of bringing in that outside coach. What difference does that make?
It makes a big difference, as you can assume. I mean, people that love and support you they're irreplaceable and they're wonderful, and that serves a purpose, but they will always be a little gentler with you. They may be supportive because they love you, but not have the business acumen to be able to give you real advice because maybe they're not in it. And, they have all of the outside factors to sort of consider. They know your lifestyle, or they know your strengths and your weaknesses. And a coach I want to be careful with this, because I don't want to make it sound like she doesn't love, appreciate, support me. But she's able to be objective. She's able to call me out and say, well, wait a minute, I hear you saying this. She's able to challenge me a lot more than anybody that I just love. And she's been doing it for a really long time. So I also value, not that I don't value the others, but I know she's walked the walk. So I listen to what she's saying, because, the proof is in the pudding. Like, she's done the work. And she has just been, again, still my biggest cheerleader, but also what I needed more than a cheerleader was somebody to really sort of like give me that reality check. Be like, yes, this is what you're doing. This is the way you've always done it. Are you happy with the results? Do you want to go further? And really push me, which for me personally is what I needed. I needed more of a push and less hand holding.
And the hand holding worked for its time. So the difference
Absolutely.
in your business, what do you feel like is the difference in your business as a result of that?
Oh my gosh. My business doubled last year.
Okay.
While having this coach. So obviously there was monetary gain there, financially. But the way that I did business, setting boundaries, she taught me about boundaries, and I struggle with that, as an empath and just loving everybody and wanting to help everybody. I was good at what I did, but I was answering my phone, email, text, calls into the night, into the weekends. And I was starting to kind of teeter on that line of burnout and not appreciating what I'm doing anymore, because it's affecting my family and it's feeling kind of all consuming. And so what Lisa taught me was a lot about boundaries, and that people will respect that too, because we are all human. And even my clients, they have families and they have other things to go. And if, there's also this, I had a bad habit of a yes man a little bit, I want to say yes to everybody. And she taught me that not every client is a good client. There are clients that are not a good fit for you, or you are not a good fit for them, or they will be more trouble than they're worth.
Yes.
And that if you approach everything with this hunger, this desperation, and you take everybody, you're not leaving space for the right people, the people who will pay you what you're worth, who will respect your boundaries, and, it'll be a good working relationship. And that was something I know for certain I never could have learned on my own.
Yeah, it just wasn't something that you were,
Nope.
Thank you, Julie, so much for that. We might have to get the name of your coach and put that in your show notes as well if you want to. We'll see. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
She's
because
incredible.
there's more than enough. Like for anyone listening who is a coach, who, as you said, coaches need coaches. I coach individual people as well. I can't coach everybody, and I'm not the coach for everybody either. So there's plenty of people who need help, and I think the other interesting thing about coaching is that the same coach doesn't work forever. Some people, you might just need 6 months of the help. You might need a year or 2 years, and then there's a different coach for a different aspect of the business. I think that's something for people to be mindful of when they're thinking about coaching. It doesn't need to be, it's not, you're not marrying the person. It's a coach relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, absolutely. Let's have some reflection. And so based on what you just said, this might be an insight into the next couple of questions. It's really, what would you have done differently? And we can't go back with the magic wand, but, what have you learned that, like you might have done differently back at the beginning?
Yeah. So you're right. That insight that I just shared is actually what I would have done differently. I wish that in the beginning, I didn't take every single person who said that they would give me money and work with me.
Yeah.
Because there were years of working with the wrong people, and it wasn't terrible. They're not bad people. It wasn't a good fit for me. I wasn't necessarily happy, and it wasn't a good fit. And I didn't make the money that I could have made, because I was, like I said, I kind of had that scarcity mindset, and I just took anything that walked in the door, and that didn't leave me open to take the right people.
Yeah.
So
I've worked with people previously who, and that is one of the things that people say, how do we get rid of these clients? We took anybody at the beginning because we just had to get money on the table, but then the problem is how to get rid of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that was another thing that my coach taught me, is how to fire a client.
How to fire a client.
That it's okay.
So so has it been tough along the way?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And
what makes it tough, and how do you get over that?
I will go on record to say that any entrepreneur who says it's easy is lying. It's not. No matter how much you love what you're doing, it's always hard.
Yes.
And so I think, the obvious one is the lean months, when you don't have enough clients and you're worried about making the bills. I think the number one thing that is the absolute hardest, and I suspect it always will be, is that being an entrepreneur, you are on 100% of the time, 24/7, 365. It doesn't turn off. Just because the rest of the world, has a holiday, or because it's 5:00, it doesn't mean, even if you go home, it doesn't mean that your brain just shuts off, because you've always got that. If you're a good entrepreneur, you've always got that hustle, you've always got that next big thing, or how can I better my business, or how can I reach more people, or how can but I think that's what makes a good entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's
always looking ahead.
It's the flip side of that, isn't it? Yeah. I was with my mastermind group yesterday, and I hardly slept last night because I kept thinking, things just fires off so many synapses that, indeed. Who else? Do you have a VA that helps you? Do you have, do you outsource some of the things that you do? Who's on your team?
I have 2 people right now who help me out, and they're incredible. One of them is actually my best friend, and I put off working with her for a very long time because I was so worried, again, with the boundaries. I was so worried that it would ruin our friendship. But I was desperate for help, and I took the leap. And not only is she an absolute genius with the work, but she just, she's a godsend. I don't know what I would do without her. And so I have 2 right now that help me out. I had an intern up until recently, but she had to go back to college, and I've never wanted to cling to someone's leg and beg them to stay so much in my whole life. So hopefully she comes back. So right now it's me, and I have 2 other great women that work with me. And then I have a great network. I'm very good about knowing my boundaries. So if there are things that I can't do, I pride myself in being able to connect people with the people who can serve them. Yeah,
because we can't do it all ourselves, can we?
We definitely can't. Not and grow.
Well, that's right. Not and grow. But it's so, I was listening to you there, and the irony that you were kind of on that tipping point of overwhelm, and in fact that's what you do to help other people. You know, like, it's just irony as entrepreneurs, we get to that tipping point, don't we, of feeling overwhelmed ourselves because of trying to do everything, being switched on all the time.
It just goes to show you, even the right arm needs a right arm, you know?
Even the right arm needs a right arm, indeed. All right, Julie, we've been talking for a little while now, and I reckon we can probably help you answer this question. But what are 3 characteristics that you have that make you successful?
I would say number 1, and I think this is probably true for every entrepreneur, I am passionate. I love what I do, and I believe that it makes a difference. I think you have to be passionate in order to be successful if you're doing your own thing. I think the other thing, I'm creative. You know, I'm always evolving. I'm always adding either new services or better services, or, you know, kind of listening to the feedback and tweaking what I'm doing. But I try to always be creative and come up with new and better solutions, ways to support entrepreneurs. And then the third I would say is I am relentless. I am not afraid to fail. And so I just keep taking that leap, and it, you know, it pays off. I don't think I can think of a time where I took a really big leap and landed on my face. You know, the universe just has a way of catching you.
It does. It's amazing, isn't it? But as you said, you do like to plan, and you do like to be a little bit prepared, and you like to crunch numbers. And so, you know, like, even though you take a leap, it's a bit of a calculated leap, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, I should say that. Yes, I never leap stupidly. I never leap without looking.
No, but there's still a leap involved, because there's lots of people, you know, we get into that ready, aim, and, you know, at some point you have to actually fire, don't you?
Absolutely. You'll never go anywhere if you don't.
You never go anywhere. So as we bring this to a close, what's your sort of parting words to somebody thinking about starting a business, or somebody in that early stage? And I know you've said some fantastic things in this conversation, but what's your parting gift to everybody?
I would say if you're gonna start a business, make sure it's something you love, because it's not easy. And make sure you have support, you know, and it can be in many forms. It can be family and friends. It can be a networking group. It can be mentors and coaches. But nobody goes it alone.
Yeah, I think you're right. Nobody goes it alone. That's a lovely way to finish. Thank you so much, Julie, for your time today.
You're so welcome.
Totally
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
So much in this conversation, isn't there? You cannot do it all by yourself, as Julie says. No one goes it alone. Having a coach is invaluable. Even coaches need coaches. Learning about boundaries was so important for Julie, who describes herself as an empath. And I know many of our listeners also describe themselves as empaths and struggle to say no and create boundaries. This year, more than ever, we know knowing how to establish and keep clear boundaries is even more important. Of course, I really love it when a guest is so clear about calculating their numbers and knowing how much money they need to make before they actually take that leap and base their business plan on the numbers. What's your best takeaway from this conversation? If you know someone who would benefit from listening to Julie's business wisdom, please share this episode with them. Thank you so much for listening. If you're keen to connect with me, head over to LinkedIn, Ingrid Thompson. If Facebook is more your connecting place, I have set up a Facebook group called Healthy Numbers Profit Lab. It's the community for business owners and entrepreneurs who want to build and grow a profitable and viable and robust business. Head over to Facebook and look for Healthy Numbers Profit Lab. There's a few Profit Labs around, so you just need to find the right one. Every Monday I go live at 12 noon Sydney to talk about the things that will help you in business. I know that it's super important to you to be able to understand how business works, to be able to have confident conversations about money, and to be able to base your decisions in the facts and the data in your business. I'm known for able to take the complexities of business and make them simple to understand. All those complicated things, I have a way of making it easy to understand. That is my guarantee to you, my wonderful listener. Make it easy to always know when the latest episode is here by subscribing. What have you heard today that inspires you to take action? As we always like to say and finish our podcast, ideas without action, that's what they are. They're ideas. Fabulous to have ideas. The question is, what What actions are you inspired to take today? Till the next time, thanks for listening.